Welcome to Truth and Reality. I am Ashley, and this is our first Truth and Reality podcast, and we're so glad that you joined us. I'm here with my friend Melissa, and we are just here to talk about just that, truth and reality. This podcast is dedicated to talking about truth, the ups, the downs, the in-betweens of life, and how our faith and how God actually fits into all those spaces. We've both walked through some seasons in life, and so have some of our other friends who will be on this show. And it's been challenging and it's been hard, but the beautiful thing is that we have found healing and growth and freedom bridging truth and reality. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but first I would like to introduce you to Melissa and let her introduce herself. Melissa, thanks
Hey,
for
thanks so
joining us.
much, Ashley. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to do this with you. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I am a single mom of 4 beautiful kids. I have a 23-year-old, 11, 10, and a 9-year-old. So I probably could write a good parenting book. I don't know if anyone would read it, but yeah, I just live locally here in Minneapolis, and I am the national spokesperson for Minnesota for a beautiful organization called Never Alone. So I help widows in the local Twin Cities area just find their footing again after grief and loss. And I'll talk a little bit more about my story at another time, or possibly today a little bit. But yeah, I'm just excited and honored to be here with you right now, Ash.
Awesome. Thank you. And the awesome thing is that Melissa and I have been friends for like 3 years, 3.5,
Yep.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And we both
Yep.
walked through challenging places in our lives at the same time. And so what was beautiful is we felt like God brought this friendship together. And as we've walked through our own individual journeys that are very different, we've had this common ground of being able to talk to each other and have a friendship where we can bring those real things we're going through and at the same time encourage each other just by listening to what we're each going through and seeing how we are growing in our faith or struggling in our faith at different points. So I walked through a divorce. I have 4 children as well. And so that was the challenging thing that I had walked through, amidst other things in life. And Melissa, as she said, is a widow and is walking through widowhood and finding her new footings. And so we're both in this space of parenting. We're both in the space of what does new look like? What does life look like in walking forward? So I guess my first question for you, Melissa, is what has addressing reality and truth at the same time done for your faith in your life?
That's a really good question. I just want to highlight one thing that you said is that
Yeah.
I think what's beautiful about our friendship, and you were obviously grieving the last 3 years ago of your marriage and what would have been. And in a different way, I was grieving the loss of losing a spouse, right? At a very young age. And I think that was beautiful that even though you were walking through something really hard and something so different than me, that you and I were able to walk these parallel lives and help each other in really moments of difficult places that we never saw ourselves being. And so I think the great question that you asked is like the reality of where it was at. It was hard. I think I wanted to deny what the reality was for a long time. And it was really challenging to find my footing again and reality versus, or I guess what was your question again? I probably drank too much
Yeah.
coffee this morning.
No. Yeah, just what you're saying. Like the reality of us not being in a place we expected and how that
Mhm.
butts up against our belief and our faith and our truth and how did we bridge that, or how did you personally start to struggle through that?
Right. And I think, Ash, you know this about me. Like, I'm someone who's been full of faith and has walked real close with God my whole entire life. And so, Matt getting diagnosed with cancer was a real big curveball, and it was just challenging to me. But I just assumed that he would be healed and that walking out this Christian life, that another hard wouldn't happen to us. And so him passing was another curveball while I really had to wrestle and really kind of figure out, who is God? Who is he? What are the truths that I believe? Is God good, even though this is where my life is? And really believing that there's good ahead, that God knew I'd be here at this very moment, at this very time, that he knew you would be here at this very moment, at this very time. And we're qualified, we're able, even though this wasn't something you and I ever saw ourselves being. And so I think for me, I have wrestled the last 3 years, and I have come to a place where I have settled a lot of those questions,
Mm-hmm.
embraced the reality of where I'm at, and I think come to be okay, if that makes sense, right? Of accepting my new normal. I have a family element. You have a family element. It's different than what I thought it would look like. And there's still
Yeah.
good in it. Is there hard? Yeah, I think you can hold hard and beautiful, and I think you would agree, on that as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I agree. Having them tandem, I always thought too, going through, you never think you're going to walk through something struggle like that. You
Mhm.
think, life will be ups and downs, but it won't be the extremes of losses that we've experienced and that
Yep.
trial. And I think you're right. When you get to those spaces, first of all, no one talks about the hard issues, or we throw
No.
out a front that's like, "Oh, we're fine." Even though people might know what we're going through, we throw up this front to project, that we're okay. And I think that's something in the church world that I
Yep.
struggled with because I thought I had to throw out a front that I was okay. And I think that walking through a struggle and getting to the point where I couldn't be okay, right? I couldn't just project. That's that space where I let vulnerability come out, which was so challenging, right? To be
Mhm.
vulnerable with people, but you find compassion, you find people saying, "Me too," you find hope. And I think that's that space that we both have walked through where we both had faith. We both grew up with faith. We both grew up in
Mhm.
the church. We both grew up, and not wavering, having that foundation. But when a trial hits and shakes and shatters, like you said, I think that's the space where you figure out, what do I believe? Who is
Yep.
God actually? Right. And it
Yep.
moves from religion to relationship. And I
Yep.
know we've talked about that a lot, how we're not out here searching for a religion. We're out here
Nope.
searching for Jesus, for a
Right.
relationship, and how he wants to be in it with us. And I think that was a
Yep.
huge piece too. Be in the grief with you, be in the struggle with you, and walk you through it. And I think a beautiful way
Right.
he's done that is through our friendship. And
Yep.
which is why I would love to bring that friendship and that peace to other people, in that
Yep.
space where we can talk about the real parts of life, where we can talk about reality, but we can also talk about how our faith fits inside of that.
Right. And I think you and I would totally agree. You have to find those safe people that you can talk to, and you have those people. The beauty of yours nice friendship, and I know people have asked on Instagram, is that I found you later in life. Typically you don't find lifelong friends later in your life, and I'm in my 40s, and you came in like at such a pivotal point in my life. And I remember coming home from the funeral, and you were in my laundry room folding my laundry and cleaning my house, and I didn't know you that well, and I remember the Lord saying, like, she will be a lifelong friend. And I think you have to find people in your corner who are
Hmm.
safe, that you can trust, that, like you said, that you can be vulnerable with. Because I'm with you. I was not okay, but I wanted the world to know that I was okay, whether that was through shopping and making it look like on my outfit and on the outside I was okay, or
Yeah.
working out, or making sure I had all the things when really I was so hurting inside. And so I'm grateful that you can have friends that can hold a space, that can
Hmm.
be safe, that you can share. And it's like you said, it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard
Hmm.
to let down those walls and say that you're not okay. And I think you and I have both wrestled with a religion versus a relationship. I'm looking for a relationship with God, a God who loves me, a God who sees me. I think through widowhood, I felt really unseen and very unnoticed. And I'm sure you feel in different ways. The same with through a divorce, is that you feel very unnoticed, or people just, get busy and things pass. And so I'm grateful that I have deciphered against between a religion and having a relationship with God. And I think the beauty of something so hard that I've walked through is that I found God in a deeper measure. I hate that it
Hmm.
took Matt's passing, but I think I found a beautiful intimacy with the Lord of knowing who he is and that he loves me. And he grieves when I grieve. He grieves when you grieve, Ash. Whenever
Yeah.
you walk through hard things, he's there. He's in it, even though he felt far away at moments. He's there in every single aspect of it. And so I think there's beauty even in our pain. And I think
Yeah.
you've had to look for the good. You and I talked about that a lot, like looking for the good in each day, even though it's hard, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think there's beauty in the pain. And he's taken us individually. Like we talk about relationship with God. There might be people being like, well, what is that? What is a
Right?
relationship with God?
Right.
Somebody I can't see. And I
Yep.
think it's different for both of us. I think we have some consistencies, things that we have done and operated the same as we seek out that relationship with God, right? But I also think that they're unique and individual to how individual we are and
Yep.
what that looks like. So, what for you does your relationship with God look like? when you're talking about not religion, obviously we both go to the same church. And so we
Yep.
do go to church. We do participate in that. We go and we worship and we have community there. But what is that difference between religion and relationship? How can you explain that to some
Yeah. And
people?
I think for me, Ash, I've grown up in the church my whole entire life. My parents were on staff. My sister's a youth pastor. So, I mean, going to church every Sunday, Wednesday was very common, and I met Matt and we went to church together and we brought our kids to church every single Sunday. And I don't think any of that was bad. Matt was very firm in his relationship and who God was. And so I would say I probably was a Christian my entire life. I think what's changed and pivoted probably in the last 3 years is really trying to figure out not just the Bible as stories and as great stories that happened before. It's really how to apply them, reading the Psalms and realizing God loves me and he loves wherever we're at in our brokenness. He loves us if we've never stepped foot into a church. He loves us even when we're in pain. And I think we saw that probably more importantly, I think during the pandemic is that, all of a sudden everything shut down, including churches. And I realized, for me, I would never forsake the assembly of coming together, finding strength in a room. And that happens to be for me, a church, and finding people that can understand and pray with you and walk with you and not judge where you've walked, right? I'm flawed. You're flawed, Ash. I think we're going to be sinful people. We're going to be in a nature of just, screwing up all the time. I tell my kids that I'm going to mess up every day, but I feel like I found a God who loves me, who accepts me for who I am, who cares about the day to day. And so I think what I've more found, Ashley, on this journey, and probably more importantly in the last 3 years, is just a day to day God that I talk to, that I love, that I can write, even in my journal. God, I know that you love me. I feel unseen. I feel unheard. And I'm grateful that he has carried my kids and I through prayers, through people in our church, through just loving us. And sometimes that's even just in the tangible way of maybe a meal or maybe having coffee. And so I think I'm grateful for the place that I'm at with my relationship with him, even though yet he's been a big part of my journey. So I would say to someone who's never experienced God or never walked with him that I would say try it. I would say be open to it. And it's not necessarily the four walls of a church. Maybe it's just having coffee like you and I have and talking about real things in life and how does God, intertwine in those moments.
Yeah, that's good. And I think too, like it's not negating religion and being a part of a church.
Yes,
It's
100%.
both and, right? Like
Yep.
it's that relationship, it's that daily, it's knowing I can go to God in prayer, it's knowing like I can hear from God. It's having that peace that he gives, that comfort, like showing up.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but sometimes in those really challenging moments, God gave me peace that I couldn't explain. And it wasn't
Right.
because I was reading my Bible or doing the things. And it was like he was just with me, like God
Yep.
with me. God loves me.
Yep.
God cares about me. Obviously, we read the Bible. The Bible's
Yep.
important. It's important
Yep.
to, pursue God and learn who he is. But I think a huge part of true relationship for me that I learned is identity. And that came from that destruction of what I had thought in my mind when everything
Right.
crumbled to then asking the question, God, who are you actually? What do you
Right.
actually do? What do you not do? And who are you? And a lot of that is through the Bible, through the stories, like you were talking about. Like, how are they applicable to my life? What are they actually talking about?
Right.
Melissa and I actually just went to Israel together, which was an amazing experience. And I think that brought it to life even more, just
Yes.
understanding like these aren't just stories we read about. This just isn't a God who is somewhere a long time ago or in heaven looking down, just being like, oh, I hope they get it okay. Jesus died on the
Right.
cross and I'm just going to sit up here and let it all play out. No, he wants to be involved in our life and he wants to have that
Yes.
personal connection. And I think that's amazing. And I think we've both have found that. And then I think he's both spoken to us. I won't speak for you, but on identity, like reframing
Yes.
how we view
Yep.
ourselves and who we are
Yep.
and how we walk this out. So a huge part of reality and truth has kind of been when reality shatters or
Right.
those projections we hope for and want and expect. And there's nothing wrong with having hope. We all need to have
No,
hope.
no.
But when your plans shatter, how does God come into those spaces and heal those wounds and fold and mix and move forward into what he has for you? Kind of seeing that, what has happened in life and the shatters or the broken pieces. Like you're not stuck there. And I think that's
Right.
a big thing for people is if you've had something in your life happen, which is everybody, right? We're
Right.
humans, everything
Right.
happens. You don't have to be defined by that moment. You don't have
Yeah.
to be defined by that season. That they're a part of us. We learn and we grow from it, but God comes in and he helps bring us through it to the
Yeah.
other side. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think you and I have talked so much about identity because I think we identified as you were someone's wife.
Yeah.
I was Matt's wife. And in a moment it's all gone. And then I think even after he passed, so many times I'd have to identify as right when I introduce someone, oh, I lost my husband. I was a widow. And it's like we always have to put this identity of I'm divorced. Not to say it's bad, right? We live in a culture of who do we identify with? I'm that person's mom or that. But I think I'm learning to kind of strip away those titles and strip away I'm Melissa and I'm a daughter of the king and I have 4 beautiful children, right? And
Hmm.
I'm a single mom and running CEO to the Richmond family. You know what I'm saying? I think we get to choose our narrative when something really hard has happened. Like you said, most people are walking through hard experiences. Either they're going through it or it's something they're about to walk into, or maybe it's something they've already experienced. But I
Yeah.
think you get to choose the narrative in that moment of what is our opening line. And you and I have talked about that. What is that opening line that we get to say now? You're Ashley,
Hmm.
mother of 4 beautiful children,
Yeah.
and so I think really identifying, right, and not taking those moments of really, really hard and letting that be our opening line instead
Yeah.
of changing the narrative to something really beautiful, you know?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So, yeah. So this talk, this coffee session, this sit down with us, this truth and reality is going to be that. It's going to be talking about the real places. We want to create a space for you, for me, like Melissa and I have with each other and a few of our other friends. We want to include them. They've been awesome support for us as well to have that space to talk. So we would love to hear your questions. We would love for you to email your questions, find us on social media. We would love to have you in the conversation with us. We would love to just bridge reality and create that space where we can be real, where you can find support, where you can listen and know that you're not the only one walking through hard things and God has good things for you too. So find us. Thank you, Melissa, for today.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
having me.
joining us. I'm excited for what's to come. Find us at Peace Runs Deep on Instagram and Facebook, and the links will be in there to send your questions and email. Until next time, thank you.